Hi, I'm Ambi Tara. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio today. Last week, I shared a little tour of my creative space and showed you the plants that are keeping me company while I work. One of those plants is this beautiful fiddle leaf fig, which is actually a baby from a larger plant I have growing in my living room. I thought it would be fun to show you that plant and share a bit about the process I use for propagating all sorts of plants. So 4 weeks ago, I took my camera down to my living room to show you. So let's go down there and travel back in time. I love my fiddle leaf fig. It has gotten so big. When I first got it, it was really small and it has just continued to grow. It's so dramatic. It takes up a lot of room, and this branch here is getting so tall. Last year, I did a little trimming and took some cuttings and rooted them in water. It was an experiment. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, and it did. Here is one of those cuttings today. And it is flourishing and growing, and very exciting that my experiment ended up working. So today I'm going to trim a couple other spots on my plant, and I hope that it will branch. Now this, you can see here, is a place that I cut, and it started branching out on the side here and continuing to grow here. This cut ended up with a few different branches, so you never quite know what's going to happen. So I identified a couple spots that I want to trim. One is definitely this tall branch, and I'm just going to cut it right here, right above a leaf. And so then I'm going to take this and put it in some water. I'm going to set this down while I go to the other branch over here. I'm going to cut this right here. So now I have two cuttings. And then this branch here I'm going to cut. And I'm going to keep this pretty short. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to take each of these and put them in some water, and we'll see how the plant does. It should branch out a bit more, get a bit more bushy, and then I will hopefully have 3 more new baby plants. So I've turned around my plant so that it's closer to the light. It's got its little baby next to it, and then here are my cuttings just in a regular jar of water. You need to make sure that the bottoms are submerged, and there will probably get some roots all along where if you can see those speckles on there, we'll probably get some roots there. So we'll see. Here's some tips to help you be successful. First, make your cut above a leaf, because where the leaf attaches to the stem is where new growth will come. Be sure to cut a stem with only a few leaves. That way, the new plant that you are creating won't have to support a whole lot of growth. Keep your cuttings out of strong sunlight so they won't be stressed or burned. Don't be afraid to experiment. If I hadn't taken those first fiddle leaf fig cuttings, I would never have had some new plants. And this might seem silly, but talk to your plant babies and give them love. I have loved plants and flowers since I was a small child. I have my mom to thank for surrounding me with them. She planted the seeds for me to grow into a gardener and also an artist. I was a gardener before I was an artist, and when I started teaching myself how to paint, I turned to plants and flowers as my subjects. Houseplants show up in my art over and over again. When it's winter and my garden sleeps beneath the snow, my houseplants fill the void. It's a seasonal cycle for me, my art reflecting the cycles of the natural world. My indoor garden brings me so much joy, growing it and painting the plants that are part of it. Let's check on the fiddle leaf fig cuttings. Already after just 1 week, those speckles I pointed out are starting to swell. I use my houseplant paintings in the products that I create too, like my yearly desk calendars, and this year I used them when I was creating my tea towel calendar pattern. I really love how it turned out, and these plants gathered together bring me so much joy. Let's see how the cuttings are doing now after 2 weeks. Wow, you can really see the progress as the little rootlets continue to swell. Botanical watercolor is my main passion, but I also love creating in many different ways, and houseplants show up in those different ways of creating too. One of the most fun is in my sketchbooks. Another week has gone by and it's time to check in on the cuttings again. When I take a closer look, I can see that some of these little swellings are getting bigger than others, which is so exciting to see. Rooting cuttings in water is the easiest way to propagate new plants. Technically, it's called asexual reproduction, and it's essentially cloning the plant. The baby is genetically identical to the parent. So many of the plants in my indoor garden were grown as cuttings like this. Usually plants with softer, fleshier stems work best, and that's why I said taking cuttings of my fiddle leaf fig, which is more woody, was an experiment. I was delighted it worked. Taking cuttings is a great way to freshen up a straggly plant, letting you start with young, new growth. It also gives you more plants for your own garden or to share with friends. In just about every room of my house, some of the plants that I am growing were grown from cuttings. The wandering Jew plant in my studio was a rooted cutting from a friend. And when that little plant took a topple just the other day, I wasn't worried because I knew I could root the broken pieces and that the remaining plant will regrow. Here we are 4 weeks after I took the cuttings of my fiddle leaf fig. The roots have really taken off. I could put them in potting soil now, but I usually like to give the roots a little more time so that they're longer and thicker. I took a look at where I did the cuttings on my original plant and noticed new growth is also beginning there. And if you look very carefully, on the left side across from where that larger bud is, there's a smaller one that is starting to grow as well. The days are lengthening and all my plants are putting out new growth with the increased light. It's really exciting to see. If you have never tried rooting cuttings in water, I hope that you'll be inspired to do so, and I hope you'll tell me about it. By the way, the rubber plant in my studio was also grown from cuttings. I hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about the plants that I grow and how they fit into my creative process. I would love to hear about the plants that you grow and how they fit into your creative process. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.